About the consumer, let's talk about enterprise software. Of course, we will talk about the Fed, and of course, we have the all-important PCE tomorrow, PCE core. It will undoubtedly be market moving. Do we have validation that inflation has broken trend and heading lower? Are we concerned perhaps that it is higher than expected? Tomorrow will be a very important day. But before we get there, we got to talk about some earnings from some key retailers. I think we need to start to ask ourselves, is the consumer broke? We've undoubtedly seen consumer behavior change over the last 2 years, where money was free, where stimmy checks were abound, and we had record level of discretionary spending. Well, that has clearly changed. We have heard lots of reports about savings dwindling, but yet the consumer is still spending. The question I have is, what are they spending on and what are they spending not? Because you could still have an economy that is growing, perhaps below trend, and you could still have pain at certain retailers who aren't matching consumer needs. So let's talk about 3 consumer-based companies. Let's look at their quarterly reports, or at least their announcements, and ask ourselves, what is going on with the consumer? Why don't we start with Best Buy? Best Buy, as I'm sure you recall, was a pandemic darling as more and more of us worked from home, bought a second computer, bought cameras, bought everything we needed to trick out our nest. We've undoubtedly seen Best Buy have some very, very tough comps, but now we are seeing the consumer pull back on discretionary items, according to their CFO. Best Buy missed on revenue, so that is top line. They did not sell enough stuff. They did exceed or beat earnings. Again, beating earnings as an ex-accountant can be managed quarter to quarter. So again, I don't really look at any quarterly earnings and go, oh, there you go. But what I look for is revenue, because you can't fake revenue. And then, of course, what are they expecting going forward? Best Buy is still highlighting tough comps, and they are highlighting consumers are pulling back. That's important. They're still shopping. I mean, Best Buy still did something like $8 billion or some crazy number. It's just not in the categories of discretionary. All right, how about Foot Locker? Another pandemic darling. When folks were sent thousands of dollars, lots of people started collecting Jordans, Nikes, other shoes. Well, that clearly is over. Foot Locker has had a rough couple of quarters. They did match on revenue, so they matched expectations. They did beat earnings. The CEO is highlighting that the turnaround is underway. Foot Locker made some decisions last year about wholesalers and the like that they have now reversed, and it appears to be working. Foot Locker CEO said that it was important to look at margins. Foot Locker is not reliant on discounts. Foot Locker CEO or CFO, I forget which, was highlighting the fact that consumers will pay retail for the right product, aka shoe. Interesting. So again, if you want that shoe, you will get that shoe, according to Foot Locker. And then let's talk about Kohl's. Kohl's missed on top line, again, revenue. They missed on earnings. They cut guidance. They said, folks, we are not going to deliver the numbers we thought we were. We are going lower. They actually reported same-store sales down 5.3%. So I ask myself, what is going on at Kohl's? The first thing I must admit to myself and to you, frankly, is I have personally never shopped at Kohl's, so I really don't know what they have. I'm going to guess it's kind of like maybe the old Kmart from, back in the day. I do not know. But apparently consumers are saying no to Kohl's. So when I think about what we learned from Foot Locker and Best Buy, what I am left to think is Kohl's, just given consumer behavior, probably is a store full of discretionary items, right? Kohl's doesn't offer a large percentage of, must have or staples. It is a store full of discretionary. And if we have a consumer that is broke, who is watching every penny, doesn't it make sense that that is what happens? And again, I ask you to go back and look at Target, look at Walmart. What did we learn from those companies? We learned that groceries, aka food, aka a need, not discretionary, is doing fairly well. Discretionary items, and certainly larger discretionary items, are not. So is this again a sign that the consumer is broke? Is this a sign that the consumer is just being more frugal? Is it a sign that the consumer is scared? Perhaps the answer is yes to all of those. Let's look at some technology. And folks that don't remember, I spent the last 20 years in tech, most of that in enterprise software. I thought there were some very interesting things going on in tech. First, Salesforce. Salesforce missed on revenue and gave a weak forecast. Their CFO and CEO are highlighting that their buying environment, their customers, are measured environment for enterprise software. Folks, I want to recall or bring your attention to something you and I talked about after Palo Alto Networks reported their latest earnings. Remember, I highlighted that when enterprise or when cybersecurity companies are having a problem, all of enterprise software is having a problem. I can't highlight this enough. Having been in the enterprise game, having sold cybersecurity, having sold monitoring and workflow and automation and all this other tech, enterprise software, when cybersecurity has a miss or a blip, other software companies are hurting because the last line item to be cut from a software budget is security. So is it a shock that Salesforce is talking about a weak environment where projects are being delayed? We are seeing deal compression. Folks, that's just code for they have to go lower. No. Is this going to be unique to Salesforce? I doubt it. I suspect there are plenty of enterprise software companies that are seeing deal compression. They are seeing slowing projects. Ask yourself, what is going on in software? And then, of course, we have to talk about UiPath. UiPath, woo! Not a good report, not a good look. The CEO is resigning effective immediately as of June 1st. Effective immediately. Wow. That is, generally speaking, not good news. We had some other earnings in tech. We had Nutanix. They are a cloud computing company. They issued weak guidance. Are we seeing the big ones, Google, Amazon, winning and all of the other cloud companies suffering? Perhaps. We had HP Inc., right? Think printers, computers, beat top line and bottom line. Pure Storage beat top line, bottom line. And then finally, American Eagle Outfitters. I seem to recall, was it Hollister? What was the company we talked about yesterday? Some brand I never been inside, beat top line, raised guidance, had a record Q1. Oh, it was Abercrombie. That's who it was. Abercrombie and Fitch yesterday, record Q1. Well, American Eagle Outfitters, again, a store I have not been in, issued very weak guidance. So again, I think what we are seeing, folks, is a consumer. Let me ask the question that the title of this video is: the consumer broke? Now, when we look collectively, right, the entire bucket of consumers, the answer is unequivocally no. Do we have a K-shaped consumer? I think the answer to that is equally certain, and the answer is yes. We have a certain consumer base who is invested in the stock market, who likely owns their home, likely has fixed rate debt, likely has record discretionary income It's called disposable income at the household level. They are doing okay, if not even good. They're probably not doing great, but they're doing okay or good. But what is going on with renters? Folks that do not own assets. They're getting crushed. If we ever needed a real life example of the key to getting wealthy, it should be obvious by now that you must own assets. It is best if these assets produce cash flow that you can live on. And then you have to own them for a decade. If you don't, if you continually put your head in the ground, you continue to live paycheck to paycheck, you're going to get what you get. A couple of other interesting things to look at. We had Fed President Neil Kashkari out talking, saying we could stay on hold for an indefinite period of time. Folks, again, something I've made a call on earlier this year is we are going to have one interest rate cut. I pegged it in November. It could be December, but we will have one. I suspect those people that are hoping that 2025 will bring 4 or 5 cuts will be greatly disappointed. When you look at GDP, we got the Q1 revised GDP this morning. I don't know if you knew that was coming, but yes, let's catch you up. It was last reported, Q1 GDP was last reported at 3.4%. It was estimated to be revised lower to 1.6%. A significant revision, if you ask me. Unfortunately, the actual number was even worse than expected. It came in at 1.3. Now, again, that is in the rearview mirror. So I go to what is called GDP Now. You can go there yourself, GDP Now. GDP Now has been remarkably accurate in calling GDP. It is now currently calling Q2, the quarter we are in, GDP at 3.5%. Frankly, folks, I am shocked at that number. Now, again, we are relatively early. Actually, you know what? We're not even that early anymore. We're 2 months into this thing, so we got 1 month more. My guess is it gets revised lower because it is constantly getting more and more data points. The experts, just so we know, the experts are calling for 2.1. This is not to be surprised. The experts have been behind on GDP Now for seemingly 18 months, so 6 quarters, but that is interesting to look at. Again, weekly jobless claims, something you and I get every Thursday morning. Last 216, expectation 218, actuals 219. Folks, as long as we're below 300,000, and I think the magic number is 325, nothing to be concerned about. We did have a blip a few weeks ago up to 235 or 237. It is not repeated, so that was an outlier. But again, there is a lot of stuff going on. And lastly, let's talk about school. This is a particular platform that I am excited about because we are continually adding more and more value. Frankly, more of you need to join school. First, I am loading this weekend the 10-week boot camp. The 10-week boot camp was a $1,000 course that we went through. We recorded all the content. Why is this important? Why do you need this? Folks, if you are stuck, if you are scared, if you are concerned, this 11-week boot camp will take you hand-holding. We will go through questions. We will build a buy box. We will go through your spreadsheets. We will show you opportunities to look into. This $1,000 course is free for joining school. Second, we now have original content only on school. Yesterday, the one and only Beth Traverso was nice enough to share her portfolio with Dion, Matt, and I. We went through that portfolio, which was very high in equity, but low in cash flow. We talked about her time horizon of being 5 or 6 years to being out, to being retired, to enjoying that third season of life. Happens to be timed with her youngest graduating high school. We all gave ideas and examples. This is the kind of stuff that I hope becomes common on school. I want to hear from you. The school community is small. If you want to ask a question, if you want to have one of the millionaires answer a question, School is the place to do it. Now, because we did talk about our portfolio and we did talk about what, kind of action items, that data, that story will never be on YouTube. I don't think it is fair to Beth to put her business out on such a public platform. But you can find it on School. Go to the classroom, look at the bonus content or whatever we call that. I think special guest. It is already loaded and already available. On top of that, tomorrow at 10 a.m., you're going to get the one and only Matt the Mortgage Guy to take all of your mortgage questions. Do you have mortgage questions? Do you have definition needs? Do you have a quote? Do you think you're being taken advantage of? Do you have a scenario about doing a cash out refi, a second, a home equity line? Bring them to Matt the Mortgage Guy tomorrow at 10 a.m. You could see it in the classroom section. And then finally, you're going to get the opportunity on Sunday morning, 9 a.m., to interact with Jason Pritchard, who you have long heard me say is on the Mount Rushmore of investors. He is the best investor in my market that I've been in for 20 years. You want to get around these folks. And if you have a question for Jason Pritchard, you can put it in School. You can interact in the comments. I will, of course, look forward to seeing you there. Again, folks, we are trying to make School exceed all of your expectations. We are trying to get to the important action items. We are trying to get you not just the data, but we are trying to help all of us move forward each and every week. Time to join, $20. Cheap, cheap, cheap. I'll leave a link below. I'll see you there. Later.